Oh, so here's the truth of this moment. March 21st, 2021. Very few of us are in the best shape of our lives, mentally or physically. And it's no wonder that we aren't. Until just a few days ago, gyms have been closed down. For many of us, lives have gotten more sedentary. We've struggled with anxiety and depression on different levels. And now we are coming off the adrenaline of those early months of the pandemic and the presidential election. That's behind us now. And it's easy to feel like we are now in a slump. And I don't know about you, but I find it easier to take care of myself, to practice self-care when I feel good about myself, when I feel strong and healthy, when life seems to be in just the right groove. Then it's easy to do the things I need to do to take care of my body, which in turn cares for my mind and my emotional life. Eating right, getting enough sleep, exercising, keeping my mind engaged. But when I don't feel as good about myself, when I lack energy or when I feel like I'm getting out of shape or whatever it might be, then it's pretty easy to stop doing those fundamental things that matter so much. Might as well stay up late because who cares? Can't exercise the way I want to, so why explore alternatives? Might as well eat this or that because, well, it feels good in the moment and I need the comfort right now. For most of us, our relationship to how we feel about our bodies goes way back, maybe to our youth when some adult or child pointed out something that led to, well, if not lifelong insecurities, at least lifelong awareness. If you've been told your nose was too small or too big, or you weigh too much or too little, or you're too tall or you're too short, you never really forget that. Which means the struggle to be at peace with the realities of our bodies often develops into a lifelong process. Many of the big questions that humans ask through religion often sideline the realities of the body. Our bodies sometimes seem like second thoughts, temporary houses that our souls must endure before we get to something better. Religion has frequently been interpreted as having more respect for the body after death than it has for the body during life. None of this is particularly helpful for people trying to navigate the reality of daily life with its struggles and stresses. And too often, humanity's lack of appreciation for bodies, ingrained in culture and religion, can lead just to not just to judgment about the worth of others, but even to violence. The horrific shooting and killing of 8 people this week, including 2 women of Asian descent, well, it's more evidence that the message that all bodies are sacred, holy, and of great value, that message has been twisted, especially in terms of misogyny and racism, which send the message to at least some people that some bodies are of more value than others. If this weren't the terrible message out there, then wouldn't we as a human race put more care in, more value in taking care of all the bodies that populate this earth? Wouldn't we have responded differently if COVID had hit well-off white communities as hard from the beginning as it hit communities of color in this country? But we don't, which suggests to me, alongside the whole bloody history of human interaction with one another, that we don't really think very highly of our bodies, that the larger social message is that our bodies are pretty disposable. No wonder that when we get a little down, it's even harder to care for ourselves. If you ever struggle with that, please don't blame yourself. We don't live in a world that has made it easy for you to love your body and care for it. Let me say that again. We don't live in a world that has made it easy for you to love your body and care for it. And of course, when we aren't caring for our bodies as well as we should, our intellectual and emotional lives pay a price too. So where do we begin to change this? Well, it starts with acknowledging the truth. And the beautiful truth is that we come in all shapes and sizes, all abilities and disabilities, and we change throughout our lifetimes. Sometimes we are happier with the size or shape we may be than other times. Sometimes we no longer have a physical ability that we used to have. Sometimes we care a lot about how we look, and sometimes we don't feel like that matters. Sometimes we luxuriate in physical sensations, and sometimes we carry the burden of chronic pain. The realities of our bodies change throughout our lifetime. And all those realities, even the ones that perhaps aren't our favorites, are still good realities. How do I say that? Well, because they still represent life in some form. A body dealing with illness, a body that is not the ideal weight, a body adapting to a disability are all still good bodies worthy of love and respect. You know, a friend of ours got very ill with COVID a couple of months ago. She ended up in the hospital. Days turned into weeks. And we had more than one moment where we worried that this might be the end. But there was a dedicated nurse by her side during much of that time who more than once told the doctors that he thought our friend, the patient, could make it through one more day without a ventilator. And so they kept on, and ultimately no ventilator was needed. She's alive to tell the tale, though still struggling with some of the physical after effects. What amazes me about this story, probably because it hits close to home. I mean, there's so many other stories like it. Some of you have lived through things like it, is that we see it as a story of a body weakened by this terrible virus. That's one way we can look at it, or we can see it as the story of a body that showed strength, a body working to cope and adapt and carry on. And we know that there's not always a happy ending to those stories, but that effort that the body makes to get well is something that should be celebrated. There was a time when people whispered the word cancer as though a body were tainted forever by the association with it. I hope at some point we begin to more fully live with the idea that a body that has gone through hardships and a body that is sometimes worse for the wear is a good body. The wholeness is found in how we feel about our hard-working bodies, not about whether they are wholly perfect, whatever that means. I also want to remind you this morning that despite our small little voices this morning in this service, there is a whole multi-billion-dollar sea of voices and industries alive and well in the world dedicated to making you feel bad about your body. Now, we can appreciate the art of fashion or makeup or beautiful photography, but we also have to remember the business behind those things. And the business is dedicated to selling particular physical characteristics to you. It's not a business designed around acceptance of all types, shapes, and ways of being. It's one way designed to make you feel you need help. And goodness knows there's nothing wrong in wearing clothes of your choosing or altering your appearance to your own satisfaction. It's when this is done from a sense that something is fundamentally wrong with you as you are, well, that's when there's a problem. You know, as Unitarian Universalists, I'm proud that we have historically been interested in the realities of the body. In the old days, Unitarians and Universalists held the belief that there was a divine spark in each of us, which made all of us worthy of being cared for and loved. And this idea directly led to the idea of Unitarians and Universalists sticking up for people who were oppressed and even abused because of the bodies they came in, their skin color or disabilities they had. Now, nowadays, not all of us may believe that we have a piece of God in us. That may not be something we all believe, but we mostly agree that caring for one another's bodies is the right thing to do just because it's the right thing to do. It's fair, it's just, it makes sense. But that doesn't mean we aren't still wrestling with loving our own bodies as well as doing the justice work of making sure all bodies are loved. This congregation has recently added the eighth principle with its focus on anti-racism work because our first principle, focusing on the worth and dignity of every person, just wasn't enough. It should have been. But the truth is that we are fighting great ideological systems created to tell us that some bodies are not worth the same as others. And so we have to name what we're fighting, or it's easy to lose track of it. Racism is still among us, as the killings this week show. Sizeism, misogyny, ableism, ageism, transphobia, homophobia, all alive and unfortunately pretty well. Any LGBTQ person who has gone to get medical care can tell you that it is still complicated, I can say this, and sometimes downright uncomfortable to answer personal questions. Depending on what they weigh, people can tell you of their experiences in their bodies being looked at, talked about, or how they were cared for or not cared for. How many people with a bodily disability have had to deal with intrusive questions or doubt about their pain or basic bodily needs? And how many people, because of their age, have been dismissed or viewed in a certain way because their body looks different than the ones the larger culture lifts up as being of value? Again, folks, it is a big fight here. If you sometimes struggle to love your body, you've got every good reason to feel that way. To love your body is countercultural. To care for your body is countercultural. So where do we start? Well, here's an easy entry point, but I think it can make all the difference. Kenny Wiley of UU World magazine spoke of what he calls the big four questions to ask yourself every day. So you only get a few things out of this sermon this morning. Try and remember these four questions. Number one, have you eaten lately? Number two, have you slept? Number three, have you exercised lately? And number four, have you read anything good or learned anything fascinating lately? Those four simple, basic questions are a great place to start when it comes to self-care. Because if we don't have that, then it becomes harder to do all the other things related to self-care, like setting up a complicated calendar that has an appropriate balance of social and alone time, or having appropriate boundaries with other people in all ways, finding spiritual practices like meditation that still our centers, having intellectual and creative outlets, and so on. If we haven't eaten, slept, exercised, or done something to stimulate our minds and imaginations every day, then it's really hard to do any of those other acts of self-care. And of course, if we haven't done those things, it's also incredibly hard to simply feel a loving connection to our bodies. The stakes here are higher than just individual self-love, because getting a healthier, kinder, more compassionate society to emerge is going to have to be driven by people who are, guess what, healthy, kind, and compassionate. And that has to start with people who feel that way about themselves. I know it's a cliche, but the truth is still held within the idea that loving others starts with loving yourself. When we look at others, we see our own reflections in them. And if we haven't been kind to ourselves, then we will struggle to be kind to each other. So I ask today that you make a commitment. That's our theme this month, commitment. A commitment to holding gratitude for all your body has done to protect you, to sustain you, to house you. I ask that you acknowledge the traumas our bodies have undergone throughout our lives, and especially this past year, and for our body's commitment to survival. We take this moment to acknowledge the complicated relationships we still hold with our bodies, the struggle with the limitations we encounter, the wish for aspects of our bodies to be different. And we take this moment to acknowledge the reality of the work we still have to do, to love our own bodies more, and thus, in turn, to love others' bodies more, to continue to strike down ableism, sizeism, sexism, racism, homophobia, transphobia, ageism, and all the other obstacles that exist that keep people from accepting their own bodies. To renew our commitment to seeing all human bodies as a being of great worth. To stop acts of aggression and violence against these sacred bodies. While we, I think, as a community, often hold much gratitude for our intellectual abilities and for our emotional lives, let us not forget this work of loving our physical selves, because this informs the totality of our lives in countless ways. May we not forget that the work of self-care is not merely a matter of personal accountability, it's ultimately a way of evolving as humans so that we're better equipped to do the transforming of this work of this world into one that is more accepting, less violent, and ultimately more compassionate. And yes, can't forget this. You are beautiful as you are. May you never forget that either.